Hello guys, gals and non-binary pals, welcome back to Budget Brew with me, Lotus. Today's brew will be a brew under $20 and that's with TCG market prices. Today's commander is Ognis, the Dragons Lash, one hybrid black-red red and hybrid red-green for a legendary creature, Vyashinu Warrior, a 3/3 with haste, that whenever a creature you control with haste attacks, create a tapped treasure token. As always, we're going to start with the ramp, as the budget options here are circuitous route to go get some gates, as well as some basics, cultivate, environmental sciences to also gain a little bit of life, and harrow. And rounding off with Migration Path, Rampant Growth, Grawl Locket and Commander Sphere. With a Jund deck as we are, card draw is very restrictive in we can't just draw cards, there has to be some kind of cost, so we make them as best we can to theme what we're doing. Big Score creates us treasures as well as drawing us cards. Costly Plunder, we can sacrifice our treasures to draw cards, same with Dockside Chef, and Seize the Spoils makes us treasures and draw cards. And then we have Skullport Merchant, it makes a treasure when it enters, but we can sacrifice a creature or a treasure to draw cards. Unexpected Windfall, again, that draws us cards and makes us treasure tokens. And Trading Post is the most utilizing card we have, where we can gain life by discarding a card. We can create creatures to block with if we need them, or we can sacrifice creatures to return artifacts from our grave to a hand. But the biggest thing that we need is 1 and tap, sacrifice an artifact to draw a card. Every deck needs some removal, so we're trying again to tailor it to what we need. We have Crack Open, one of the new cards, for 2 and a green sorcery. Destroy an artifact or enchantment and create a treasure token. Grim Bounty, destroy target creature or planeswalker, create a treasure token. Makeshift Munitions is in the removal section because we can sacrifice our artifacts and a couple of creatures if needs be to deal damage to creatures to try and kill them off. Prize Fight, again, it's target creature you control fights target creature you don't control, but you can also make a treasure token from it. And then we have Putrefy, destroy target artifact or creature, it can't be regenerated. Rakdos Charm, we can destroy artifact. Each creature can deal 1 damage to its controller, which sometimes against token decks is a win con. Or we can exile all cards from a target player's graveyard, stopping the reanimation decks. And then we have Reclamation Shade, which just comes in and destroys target artifact enchantment. It's a great little addition. And then we have Return to Nature, where we can destroy an artifact, enchantment, or exile the problematic card from a graveyard. Smashing Success, destroy target artifact or land. If an artifact is destroyed in this way, we make a treasure token. Sometimes you just need to blow up that annoying land, such as Dark Depths or something along those lines. And finally, you find a Cursed Idol, 1 and a green, and we get to choose one of the following. We could smash it to destroy an artifact, lift the curse to destroy an enchantment, or we can create a treasure token and venture into a dungeon. Now we need to go into what this deck wants to do. We need to attack and with speed, so we can keep making treasure tokens. Banehound is a 1/1 with lifelink and haste. Barbed Shocker is a haste trampler 2/2, but when it deals combat damage to a player, that player discards all their cards in their hand, then draws that many cards, so we can cycle their answers away. Barging Sergeant is another haste creature, but has Mentor to buff up our smaller ones. And Boarding Party is a 6/3 with haste, but also cascades into potentially something else that's really good for us. We have Brushfire Elemental. It can't be blocked with creatures with power 2 or less, so no one can jump it. and it also gets bigger for each land that we play. Dreadhorde Butcher is a 1/1 with haste, but when it deals combat damage to a player or planeswalker, we put a +1/+1 counter on it. When it does finally die, it deals damage equal to its power to any target. Endray's Forerunners is our budget version of Craterhoof Behemoth. Erdwall Ripper is a 2/1 with haste that when it deals combat damage to a player, you put a +1/+1 counter on it. Falkenrath Marauders is a flying haste 2/2 that when it deals combat damage to a player, put 2 +1/+1 counters on it. Froghemoth is a trample haste 4/4 that when it deals combat damage to a player, exile up to that many target cards from their graveyard, put a +1/+1 counter on Froghemoth for each creature card exiled this way, and we gain 1 life for each non-creature card exiled that way. Grand Warlord Rada is a 3/4 with haste. Whenever one or more creatures you control attack, add that much mana in any combination of red and or green until end of turn, and the mana doesn't lose between phases. Helana and Elena Partners, First Strike Reach for a 2/3. At the beginning of combat on your turn, put X +1/+1 counters on another target creature you control, where X is their power. That creature gains haste until end of turn, so if it didn't have haste, we can give that one haste. And finally, Hellrider, at 3/3 with haste. Whenever a creature you control attacks, it deals 1 damage to the player or planeswalker it is attacking. Paco, although we don't have Halden, Paco is a 3/3 with haste, that when it attacks, exile the top card of each player's library and put a fetch counter on them. Put a +1/+1 counter on Paco for each non-creature card exiled this way. And Shifting Ceratops can't be countered, protection from blue, and we can pay a single green to give it haste if we need to, trample or reach. And it's a good old 5/4 as well, so there's nothing to be sniffed at. But our opponent's creatures look very helpful to us as well. So let's go down the stealing route, because each creature stealing effect gives the creature haste. Act of Treason, for example, gain control of target creature to end a turn, untap it, it gains haste. Bloody Betrayal does the same thing, but it creates a blood token. Captivating Crew is 3 and a red, gain control of target creature and opponent controls until end of turn, untap it, it gains haste until end of turn. Activate this ability only anytime you would cast a sorcery. Involuntary Employment gains control of a creature, gives it haste, but we can also create a treasure token. Malevolent Whispers, gain control of target creature, give it haste, and then untap it, get +2/+0 until end of turn. Mascot Interception does the same thing in a similar way. Mass Mutiny takes 1 from each player simultaneously. And Price of Loyalty, gain control of target creature until end of turn, untap that creature, it gains haste. If mana from a treasure was spent to cast it, it gets +2/+0 until end of turn. And finally, Traitorous Instinct, gain control of target creature, untap it, it gets +2/+0 and gains haste. So we'll be making treasures off of all of the big creatures that we steal from our opponents for a turn. We need some utility in the deck to make it all work together. Chainer Nightmare Adept, so we can discard a card if you're drawing too many cards that you can't use, like lands. So you can cast a creature spell from your graveyard this turn and activate only once each turn. Whenever a non-token creature enters the battlefield under your control, if you didn't cast it from your hand, it gains haste till end of turn. Felden of the Third Path, we can pay 2 and a red to create a token that's a copy of target creature card in our graveyard. Except it's an artifact in addition to its other types, it gains haste, and we sacrifice it at the beginning of the next end step. Garner the Blood Flame, this one is just to save our board once we've had it wiped. So when this enters the battlefield, return to your hand all creature cards in your graveyard that were put there from anywhere this turn. It has flash, but it also gives other creatures we control haste. Goro Goro, for a single red, creatures you control gain haste. And if we have more mana than we know what to do with, we can make a 5/5 red dragon spirit creature token with flying, but only if we have a modified creature. We do have ways of putting +1 counters on our creatures, as seen earlier, so it's not too bad to do. We have a Hoarding Ogre, 3 and a red. Whenever it attacks, roll a d20. We create a treasure token, we create 2, or we create 3, which will fuel what we're doing with our treasures. And Jaxis the Troublemaker, 3 and a red, for a 2/3 that has red and tap. Discard a card, create a token that is a copy of another target creature you control. It gains haste, and when this creature dies, draw a card. Sacrifice it at the beginning of the next end step, but activate only as a sorcery. So we can copy creatures, swing without worrying if they're going to die. It will trigger our command to make a treasure, and if it dies, we then draw a card to replace the one we discarded. We have a few Planeswalkers in this deck. We have Chandra, Acolyte of Flame. Basically, we're only going to be using her 0 in the middle, which is create 2 1/1 red elemental creature tokens. They gain haste, and sacrifice them at the beginning of the next end step. All we're going to do is make those 2 elementals, swing regardless if they're going to die, and we'll get 2 treasures from doing so. The same with Chandra Flamecaller with the +1. We'll just create 2 3/1s with haste, and we'll exile them at the beginning of the next end step. Samut Tyrant Smasher is literally there for the static ability that everything we have has haste, just in the off chance we play creatures that don't. And then we can buff the creature by +2/+1, and we can scry 1 if we really need to. With all these treasures, we need a few things to do with them. Onicole Anvil is a nice way to make more creatures and drain our opponents for 1. Stimulus Package is far more the biggest payout. It makes 2 treasures when it enters, but we can sacrifice a treasure token to create a 1/1 green and white citizen. Hopefully going wide, and eventually just going for a win. But talking about winning, what's the big ways we can do it? Well, firstly, Cranial Plating gives a equipped creature +1/+0 for each artifact you control, and you can attach it at instant speed for 2 black at any time. So if we get enough citizens out, 1 gets through, we can quickly equip this to one of them and hopefully kill an opponent. Disciple of the Vault. Whenever an artifact is put into a graveyard from the battlefield, you may have target opponent lose a life. If we just sack all of our artifacts for mana, we can drain our opponent out for a lot. The same with Marionette Master. Every time an artifact is put into a graveyard from the battlefield, target opponent loses life equal to its power, but we can also make it a 4/6. So they're going to lose 4 life for every single artifact we sacrifice. And Reckless Fireweaver is whenever an artifact enters the battlefield, it deals 1 damage to each opponent. So each time we attack, we make the treasure, and we ping our opponents. The mana base is pretty simple to keep it budget. Gruul Guildgate and Gruul Turf, just because our deck is mostly heavy green and red. And Rakdos Guildgate, because of the circuitous route can get 2 guild gates, we might as well add a second to try and hit both. Finally, we're rounding it out with 9 swamps, 14 mountains, and 9 forests. So the deck is a very heavy aggro deck, looking to attack your opponents every single turn, make so many treasures, and utilise them for card draw, damage, and ramping all at the same time. It wasn't supposed to be an under $20 deck, it just so happened to be that the cards that we needed were very cheap. How would you improve what we've done? If you want to build it, tell me how you've done and how you played with it. I've built this and played it myself and had so much fun, but now's it's time for you to have a look. Let us know in the comments below, like, follow and subscribe, and we'll see you again next time. Bye.